man. Good to see you.
Come on in, guys.
Come on.
Come on.
Well, we're here with Scott Epstein. You got to tell us what's going on. It's years and years and
years. Years and years and years. 38 years, actually, since 1974 I've been doing this. This is what started me in this business, Muscle Training Illustrated magazine. I was the associate editor on this magazine with the Dan Laurie organization. I saw that there
Dan
was...
Laurie's?
Yeah, Dan Laurie.
The
Yeah, the bodybuilder, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Being a wrestling fan, I said it was absolutely a crossover in the promotions of bodybuilding and wrestling and the fans. And you and I discussed Lou Neglia before. That's how I knew Lou Neglia. He was involved a little bit in the bodybuilding too, with his martial arts type stuff back in the day.
So there was a crossover with bodybuilding and then that?
Right,
Wow.
bodybuilding, martial arts, and wrestling. So my idea was to create a wrestling magazine, make it glossy, color pull-out, double-page pull-out, and front calendars in there and stuff.
Stepped it up.
Yeah. And down south, I learned the hard way that even though Tony Atlas won the Mr. USA bodybuilding show that I ran and was prime run a guy for Vince McMahon Sr. actually at the time, if you put him on the cover of a magazine down south, they wouldn't even put it out. They would just rip off the covers, send it back to the distributor, and get the credit as if they didn't sell them.
Really?
Yeah, it was in spite of everything being segregated and desegregation laws kicking in and stuff. If you were an African American, you could not be on a cover. Ric Flair down south, fine. This was in Florida. They wouldn't put. Miami, Florida, you couldn't find a picture of.
Give me a time frame about when. What was?
I would say late 70s, early 80s.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not so far.
Yeah. No, that's correct. That's correct. So in spite of all that, you could not put Tony Atlas on a cover of a magazine. We were told point blank. We actually had him big blow up, humongous, double bicep picture, and we were told by the distributor I wouldn't advise that. And and they were right. They were absolutely right. Putting Billy Graham gushing in blood, legitimately bleeding, that was fine. That's actually my shot from Nassau Coliseum, Superstar against Bruno. That's what it looked like back in the day, and there's my name, editorial.
Wow. Nice head of hair you had.
Yeah, huge head of hair. I was a wrestling fan more than a bodybuilder fan, but I picked up on the bodybuilding stuff, started doing promotions, the World Bodybuilding Guild, ran the Pro Mr. America, Mr. World, Mr. Olympus, not to be confused with the Mr. Olympia. It was that one year, 1975, I guess it was, yeah. Superstar Billy Graham entered my Pro Mr. America contest. I never heard of him, never knew who he was. He wasn't in the New York area yet. I was very impressed with his charisma. And I kind of focused the magazine around Superstar. That's how we got so tight many, many years ago. And to this day, we stay very close.
So now, how do you do the crossover from the magazine to actually being an agent for them?
Well, actually, while I was doing the magazine, I was an agent for many of the bodybuilders. That's when I met Schwarzenegger and had a little run-in with Ferrigno, too. Called me a very anti-Semitic slur.
Really?
Yeah.
Ferrigno?
Yeah. And to this day, he grunts and moans when I see him at these, not the bodybuilding, at the
Why, because you embraced Arnold instead of him?
No, actually, I got along with his father. He hated his own father. His father went into business.
Well, that answers it right there.
Yeah, and I got along very well with his father. But I wound up, representing a lot of these guys, and my love for that was, I had a good reputation out there. A lot of guys, unfortunately, in the wrestling business, bodybuilding business, were alleged no-shows, that they would be booked to come to a club or autograph signing of some sort.
Right.
A lot of guys would double book themselves wherever they could get the better money. They would take that deal, and I never had that with my guys, which was great. So my reputation was solid. My guys always showed up. They showed up in a timely manner.
So as well as actually representing them, you also putting together different concepts and shows.
Right, and a lot of public relations on it too. I was doing a lot of press releases.
So you have a creative side to you too as well.
Absolutely. That's my favorite side, that I have my creativity.
So So what do we have here?
The camp. It was actually wrestling in jello.
Not you.
Yeah.
You wrestled in jello.
In jello, absolutely. I will show you the picture.
You got a
And
picture
this
of
is
you
my
in jello?
belt. Yeah, come
on, let's
along
go
with
with
me.
this.
Come on down to Jabroni Drive.
That's great.
And there I
Scott
am,
Epstein in jello.
1999 versus Spider-Man. And the jello was red at the time, so it looked like blood. It looked like there was blood dripping all over me.
That's great.
That was my manager.
I never thought you wrestled. Well, that's awesome.
You could even see in my wedding picture of 2 years ago, under my tuxedo, unbeknownst to my wife, I was wearing my belt.
You dealt with old-time wrestlers, old-time talent, and up to current day, obviously.
Right.
There's this great story about The Rock. Maybe you could.
Well, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas currently are clients of mine, and they were back in the day when they were first African-American tag team champions. The guys would be in town, they would all train, especially when they were at the Garden. Everybody would go to the world-famous Mid-City Health Club, real old-school bodybuilding club, and Rocky Johnson would want to go and train and be left to his own devices and do whatever else he would do. And my son was 5, and I would bring him with me, and Rocky Johnson would say, "Scott, take Dwayne and your boy and go to the magic show up the block." And he would hand me $20, and he didn't want, Dwayne around because he wanted to do his own thing, whatever it was, training or whatever. I'm not judging anybody. So I became The Rock's babysitter. And there's some other history to it too. I don't know if this is privy to your knowledge and information, but there was let's call him a ring guy, the guy that helped set up the ring and allegedly did security. He was an African-American guy, young kid, probably in his 20s, named Melt Phillips. I don't know if the name rings a bell.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Turns out the stories, and I'll cross the line by saying that the stories came out that he was a pedophile. And it's a known fact that one day when they found out for sure that he was a pedophile, that he disappeared off the face of the earth. And the allegations are that WWF made him disappear. Whether that's true or not, I wouldn't know. But
Are you allowed to say that?
I said allegations.
Allegations. That's the key word.
Key word. But whether he was a pedophile or not, I know that lots of times little Dwayne Johnson would be hanging out, and he would be, hanging out with him, and one never knew. So I made sure I went out of my way, because Dwayne always came to the Garden shows. Dwayne loved Superstar too, and he would be inspired by Superstar, as it turns out. And I don't know if you saw the pay-per-view the other night, but when The Rock was actually on the pay-per-view, he mentioned something about Peter Maiva versus, who was his grandfather, versus Superstar Billy Graham. He even put Billy Graham over on the pay-per-view the other night. I forgot to tell Superstar that last night when I spoke to him. So I mindfully, watched out for the kid. And he was a real shy, quiet kid. It was absolutely amazing. Yes, sir. No, sir. This, sir. That, sir. Thank you, sir. Would hold the door for everybody.
Come a long way, huh?
Oh, my God. Never in a gazillion years would I think he would become this electrifying, charismatic young man. I mean, sure, the bodybuilding and the genetics were there and everything, but as a youngster, as a 12 or 14-year-old, I never would have seen that charisma, because he was so quiet and laid back and polite and absolutely amazing.
Could you give us your take? I mean, maybe you don't want to be candid with this, but give us your take on the steroid, the drug use. It seems like in wrestling it's running pretty rampant. People are dying young, heart attacks, and you're finding them dead in hotels. And
it's running rampant without a doubt, but no more than what it is probably in pro basketball, the NFL, hockey.
Same.
The problem with it in wrestling, why you're seeing all the publicity and knowing that people are dying, in their 30s and 40s, and the PR on it is that wrestling is a 24/7 type of thing. Guys are working 6 or 7 days a week. They're on the road 300 and some odd days. The NFL guys play once a week. season's over after a certain amount of months, and they talked about cycles when using the steroids, and all the guys thought that they were smarter than pharmacists or doctors. They knew that they took the steroids for a 6-week cycle, that then they could stop it, they wouldn't have the desires and cravings for it, and then go on to the next cycle. But when you're constantly working, and you start in with that, you need the painkillers on top of the steroids,
right?
And then you use recreational drugs on top of that. That mix can be deadly.
You had a lot of personal time with a lot of these guys,
yes,
also, as
absolutely.
well as their persona.
Right.
But you have a different side to all the people you represent.
I'm like Sweden. I'm equal opportunity to everybody. I don't judge people on, their history or what is the allegations of their history. I take everybody, for who they are, and people like that. Back in the day, there were promoters and agents that were unacceptably belligerent and scam artists that would say, okay, I'm paying you $350 for tonight, and then they would, even though the house was good, I didn't make much, I could only give you $150.
That runs rampant.
Yeah,
a lot of fields.
I never once hurt anybody on a payday, even if it would cost me out of my pocket.
But you still have the passion for it. Obviously,
yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of all the adversity that happens, it's like anything else. When there's a passion for something, you work your way through it.
Yeah, there's a passion, and there's a love for it. There's an enjoyment part of it that I like the entertainment. I like being entertained to a degree. I hate going to sloppy, terrible wrestling shows. I don't like it because it spoils it for me.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm amazed at the relationships you develop. There's a whole nother dynamic, because it's not like, hey, I book this talent, I make my commission, day's over.
Right. People have slept in this house throughout the past 3 or 4 years I've been in this apartment. Awesome Kong has stayed here. Superstar Billy Graham at the same time. You should see my food bill that week.
Superstar's
comment about the egg.
Oh, did you tell him that?
No,
that was funny. Well, he came to the breakfast table after everybody had eaten, and he said, you're going to make me some breakfast? I'm like, sure. And I went inside, and I was making breakfast, and I set a plate in front of him with home fries and a couple of eggs and bacon and a bagel, like a New York bagel. And he looked at me and he said, did you run out of eggs? I'm like, no. He said, well, there's only 2 on my plate. I said, oh, how many do you want? He says, I don't know, 8, 9. So yeah, serious, every day he eats that.
Remember, Awesome Kong bonded with my wife. They're very friendly. And out of the clear blue, a couple of weeks ago, she texted my wife and said, "Hi, just thinking about you."
I love having people here because when they're on television and you see their shtick, that's what they do. And when they stay here and they're in my guest room and they're eating at our table, that's who they are. And it's very big difference between what they do and who they are. And Scott never invites anybody here unless they know they're going to pass muster with me. So I've had a few of the boys and a couple of the girls on my table.
You did?
Absolutely.
Come on, tell us some good stories. Who'd you have?
Beefcake story.
I had beefcake on my table. He could not move his head when he came here.
And you worked him out.
2 days it took, but we got his head to move. And
Really?
he was brand new when we let him go.
Really?
Yeah, he was
Painful
really
at first,
in great
right?
shape. Yeah, well,
'Cause you
and
have
men
to
are
really work
babies.
it. Men are babies.
Women can take the deep tissue, and men
being-
cry
you're being-
a lot.
you're
Even
being
the
abusive
big
now.
men cry a lot. Men do this. Ow, 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 ow.
It is true.
That's
it is
true.
We're
And
crybabies.
women are, I'm like, is the pressure all right? Can I go in? Yeah, go ahead, I can take it. And men are,
If you had to sum up your journey, what would you say, like your journey of what you've been doing and what you've experienced?
Thought from Grateful Dead song came into mind when you asked that question. What a long, strange trip it's been.
Get that, look at that. Scott Epstein and the Wrestler. Awesome, you didn't tell us that. You did another acting, what else did you do?
I just did something called Cost of Living, independent film Australian producer. I just did it last week.
Acting too.
Try.
We got to come back.